We begin with the news that the United States has offered a prisoner swap to the country of Russia for the release of 2 Americans. WNBA star Brittany Griner, who you can see here held in a literal cage at her Russian trial, and Paul Whelan, a security consultant and former Marine who got a 16-year sentence for what the U.S. says are politically motivated charges of spying. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said this, announcing the U.S. offer.
We put a substantial proposal on the table weeks ago to facilitate their release. Our governments have communicated repeatedly and directly on that proposal.
Bringing Brittany home, bringing Paul home. This is something that we're focused on 24/7, 7 days a week.
NBC News confirmed the proposal is to swap Griner and Whelan for Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout, who is nicknamed the Merchant of Death and who is serving a 25-year sentence in the United States for conspiring to sell weapons to people who said they plan to kill Americans. Bout was the basis for Nicolas Cage's character in the movie Lord of War. And earlier this month, I asked national security expert Joe Cirincione about the possibility of swapping him for Griner.
Right. Nicolas Cage's movie, the Lord of War, was based on this character, Viktor Bout. He's a former Soviet military officer. He became a weapons smuggler, made a fortune off of this. It's known that Russia wants him out, and that's what this is probably all about. I'm afraid that's the only way that Brittany Griner is going to be coming back to the United States.
Joining me now, Hagar Chemali. She's a former spokesperson for the United Nations and host of the Oh My World with Hagar Chemali podcast. The U.S. Likely did not want to have to offer to give up Viktor Bout. I mean, given what Joe just explained as to who he is. But lay out why this might have been a tough decision for the administration in this moment and why they have ultimately decided to go the route of swapping him for Paul Whelan and Brittany Griner.
Yeah, so much to unpack there. First, I have to say that I really do believe the Biden administration in their statement that they have been working on trying to release Brittany Griner and Paul Whelan, and that they're working this 24/7 because you can see all the activity on it. You can see all the news reports. Apparently, President Biden, if these reports are true, that they have in fact are offering to release Viktor Bout in exchange for these 2. And reports say that President Biden approved it himself. If that's true, that is a big deal. As a rule, the United States does not like to offer prisoner swaps. The reason for that is that it encourages hostage taking abroad. So this is not a game that the United States likes to encourage. It's not something that they want to get involved in. Media reports say that the Department of Justice opposed this deal for this reason, and I believe it. Having been on the Treasury side, I have seen when it comes to kidnapping for ransom, it's a very similar motivation, a very similar goal there, where that you don't want to encourage hostage taking by giving some kind of deal or bonus in exchange for it. Now, that being said, Joe was right when he thought that releasing someone as big as Viktor Bout, and he is a big one, would probably be what the Russians would need in order to release Brittany Griner and Paul Whelan. I always thought that. It's neither right nor wrong. You know, like arguing that is not going to get us anywhere. It was likely the least of bad options, and getting these 2 Americans out is of paramount importance, given how Russia treats its prisoners, number one, and number 2, given the situation we're in our relationship with Russia because of the war in Ukraine.
How much does what's going on in the actual war on the ground factor into perhaps the urgency the administration feels in this moment when they're trying to figure out how to negotiate this type of deal?
Sure. Well, the situation in Ukraine in particular, given how much it has severed the U.S.-Russia relationship, not that it was in a great place before the war, but the war has really widened that gap and really, I mean, it's the lowest, our relationship is at its lowest point that it has ever been since the Cold War. And so on one hand, that's going to impact any kind of negotiations you have with that government, whether it be on political prisoners or anything else, because there's going to be this gray cloud hanging over the relationship. So you have that. On the other hand, having American political prisoners abroad is never a good situation for the U.S. government. You don't want it to get in the way of any other foreign policy you're pursuing, any other kind of deals, whether it's with regard to Ukraine, with regard to Iran, it could be anything. But also, you have the fact, to put it very bluntly, that you have a Black gay woman stuck in Russia, in a country that is notoriously anti-LGBTQ community, where a lot of racism coming from the government. So we don't want to see Brittney Griner in that position. It's a risk to her and her health and safety. And so that's why getting them out as soon as possible, getting her out as soon as possible is really critical.
I'm so glad that you emphasized that point, because it's one that I keep going back to, really how she embodies some of those things that Russia has a problem with. Let's just be clear about that. I want to play a little bit of sound from Paul Whelan's brother. This is what he had to say about the proposed swap.
It shows that the U.S. government is doing what it can, and also underscores, I think, the fact that there are limits to what the U.S. government can do to bring home Americans.
What's your reaction to that? I mean, do you think this proposed deal shows both what the U.S. can do, which you've just helped us understand, but also the limits of its ability to do these types of swaps and get our folks, our citizens, Americans released from other countries?
Yeah, I was nodding furiously when he said the part about the limits of what the U.S. can do. It's something that, as Americans, we always think that wherever we travel in the world, that we're going to be safe because the U.S. Embassy could fly in a helicopter and pull us out. And that time and again is proven to not be the case. Having worked on the other side of terrorism financing in particular, and how terrorists would kidnap journalists, missionaries, human rights activists, and they would ask for ransoms. And we didn't want to encourage that activity because by paying a ransom. And so that is illegal. The argument behind that, the reason that's so complicated and so heartbreaking as well, is because we know for fact that if we give in to that hostage taking, it encourages it further. In fact, there was intelligence that was declassified when I was at Treasury stating that terrorist groups would deliberately not pursue American and British individuals because they knew their governments wouldn't pay a ransom. So they would target other Europeans, by the way. So that's a valuable piece of intel here. Now, that shows the limits of what the United States can do. We don't want to encourage that behavior. We don't want to deal with thugs and terrorists or rogue regimes because it never puts the United States in a good spot. At the same time, we cannot be seen as leaving Americans to rot in jails abroad.
Yeah, fundamentally, and I think about this a lot just because it's so important, in the military, there's this idea that you never leave a man behind, but even just more broadly, Americans abroad that are stuck or taken hostage, get them home. Those are our people. There's no higher form of patriotism than that in my personal view. Hagar Chemali, thank you so much for being here and helping us understand the latest. Please stay safe. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.